World Liberty Financial, a testament that if Fortune 500 companies would take crypto seriously, with a roadmap and a PR plan, they'd rank into the top 50 tokens pretty quickly. At time of recording, they ranked 38th largest crypto token with a market cap of $4 billion. However, the owners of WLFI face controversy over shady interactions, with the media calling them out for mixing politics with personal gain. In this episode, we'll take a look at three things. What is and who owns World Liberty Financial? Are any of its plans for the USD1 stablecoin economically sustainable? And is World Liberty Fi the Trump family's secret answer to global peacemaking? Learn more about World Liberty Financial in this episode of Whitepaper, where we're strictly for education and entertainment and not financial advice. All right, let's get right into this one. This one was a tough one to crack in the gold paper of World Liberty. They position themselves as a protocol that opens the doors to DeFi yields, and they mainly come from Aave and Euler Finance, and they're positioned for the general American people. On the surface, the protocol appears as a DAT stablecoin hybrid, where WLFI DAT treasuries are used as collateral to generate yields that is then compounded to issue USD1 stablecoins. The treasury is currently valued at just over $7 billion at the moment, where 96% of the treasury consists of WLFI tokens. On the other hand, if we take a look at the USD1 treasury that is operated by the crypto custodian BitGo, they publish attestation audits on its $2.7 billion treasury that is backed by cash and US treasuries. However, its last report was published in September 2025 following its token unlock. No official statement pins the reason why these reports have stopped being published since then. However, reports point towards operational bottlenecks due to probes from regulatory scrutiny. As if this couldn't get any more complicated, World Liberty also holds a strategic treasury as part of its August 2025 expansion plans with Alt5 Sigma Holdings, which I'll get into later. At the helm of this operation sits the Trump family, represented by Eric Trump, who owns 60% of the protocol. However, since the September token unlocks following the pre-sale tokens, leadership has started to rotate to the representatives of the Wyckoff family. They are the other co-founders who own over 30% of the protocol and have been known to be longtime associates of the Trumps. These two families own the protocol through a web of LLCs, which allow them to legally nominate themselves as non-employees while also shielding themselves from liability in the promotional role. Essentially, this allows them to bend reality slightly, going as far as to nominate Donald Trump at one point as its chief crypto advocate. And this was, of course, before he became the president. Now, jumping into the tokenomics, WLFI has a fixed supply of 100 billion tokens on Ethereum with no inflation. So apart from WLFI's token being used as collateral to issue stablecoins in USD1, its other utility is purely governance with, get this, zero rights to protocol revenue. How WLFI makes revenue comes from lending fees on Aave and Euler, their trading pairs on exchanges, and also the USD1 yields. 25% of the revenue goes back to the treasury that is slated for buybacks and burns on WLFI and compounds into minting more USD1. And what about the other 75%? That goes directly to the wallets of the protocol owners. So for some perspective, the Trump entity owns 60% of equity, but is capturing 75% of the total upside. Now, going into distributions, allocation is given 30% to public sales, 33% marked for incentives, 30% given to the co-founders, and 3.5% to the team, which are vested. At time of this video recording, 27% of token supply is in circulation, and the remainder are non-transferable after 1 year, and also non-economical, unless decided, of course, in a governance vote. So they've raised $550 million via pre-sales at a $1.5 billion valuation. However, on the private sale side, this is where the controversies from the media start. So billionaire Justin Sun reportedly invested $75 million into the protocol and was shortly named as its official advisor, and eventually had all of its SEC charges against him for fraud dropped. A company called MGX, led by an Abu Dhabi royal member, announced it would finance a $2 billion transaction on Binance with the USD1 stablecoin. Now, following the transaction, CZ received a presidential pardon, and one of MGX's sister companies received hundreds of thousands of scarce computer chips during a time when computer chips, of course, were a very hot commodity in the space. There are also other reports that tie World Liberty Financial with Alt 5 Sigma, a company that invested $1.5 billion into WLFI tokens for a strategic DAT treasury. However, they're currently undergoing SEC probes for conflict of interest. And of course, it involves the Trump family. There is also another case of foreign affairs with WLFI involving the president of Rwanda. But I'm no longer a journalist, and I'm just going to keep on going forward because I want to keep us on track in this white paper reading video. On the front of the roadmap and milestones, World Liberty Financial has mainly planned for USD1 integrations, token unlocks, and RWA tokenizations. And have they been hitting them? Yes, they have. In March 2025, they announced USD1 stablecoins would be integrated on the Tron network. In September 1st, 5 billion tokens, or 20% of the pre-sale tokens, were released. And because of this, the treasury absorbed $7.2 billion net via the incentives. Now, looking forward into Q1 of 2026, the protocol further announced that they're looking at potential RWA tokenizations, multi-chain RWA reserve expansions, and also debit cards with USD1. But all of this comes with a clause, and that clause is subject to DAO approval for governance, but contingent on regulatory considerations. Additionally, World Liberty Financial faces numerous potential risks. On the token side, existing WLFI holders have expressed concerns over an indefinite lockup risk and illiquidity on its governance website, which kind of opens up the possibility of a post-unlock dump. There are no anti-dump cliffs, and everything here is currently pure governance roulette. On the economics, 75% of the revenue skims to the insiders, and there is no guarantee or direct upside for holders or promises to improve the protocol. Politically, ties to Trump invites SEC scrutiny, mainly for conflicts of interest. The co-founders can pivot the plans unilaterally through governance, and also this makes the token very highly affected by public sentiment. On the security side, however, their smart contracts have passed multiple external audits with fail-safes that include pauses during the exploits, and since most of them are interacting directly with Aave and Euler, they are leveraging that security as part of their entire ecosystem. Going on into governance, WLFI implements a standard token-weighted democracy. The more WLFI you hold, the more weight that you have in governance. However, there lies a 5% vote cap per wallet, and voting is token gated. But let's be real, the co-founders control 30% of the allocation and the revenue share. And this simply means that they own de facto control and have the chance to dilute unlocks if they want to. So, some final thoughts. For an industry that stigmatizes centralization and democracy, World Liberty Financial is the complete opposite of this. On the flip side, this could potentially be an exercise that could open up a new meta for TradFi asset management utilizing crypto strategies. WLFI tokens are essentially wrappers that work as pseudo Aave and Euler affiliate tokens, where only 25% of the revenue value are redirected back to you based via token buybacks. The USD1 stablecoin utilities, on the other hand, they don't ring any alarm bells, but the regulations and the probes that they are facing do. However, time will tell if they get through this period and deliver on the products mentioned in their roadmap. Perhaps the 75% revenue skim would go towards protocol expansion, but only time will tell. So, overall, coupled with the reported shady dealings, I would personally pass on WLFI, unless you're a fan of non-profit governance, or perhaps you're a big boy looking to curry some favor with the Trumps or the Wickoffs. Now, that's it for this episode of the White Paper, where we're strictly educational and entertainment and non-financial advice. And I'll see you at the next reading.